Imagine boarding a plane, ready for takeoff, only to find the pilot refusing to let you on just because of the color of your skin. But then, things take a shocking turn when airport security reveals something that will leave you speechless. What happens next will change everything you thought you knew about power, prejudice, and justice. The plane had just finished boarding, and the passengers were settled in their seats, ready for the flight. But something was terribly wrong. In the aisle, the flight crew was in a state of panic. A black man in a sharp, tailored suit was standing face to face with the captain. Tension hung in the air as the captain's refusal to allow the man on board took everyone by surprise. There was no clear explanation, just a cold dismissal of his presence. The man, calm and collected, wasn't backing down. He didn't raise his voice, didn't react with aggression. Instead, he looked the captain straight in the eye, standing tall, showing nothing but professionalism. But the captain wouldn't budge. He repeated the refusal, this time with more authority. It was almost as if he was daring the man to push back. The black man reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a brown wallet, and opened it to show an FBI badge. Whispers spread throughout the cabin. The agent's calm demeanor contrasted with the captain's growing frustration. As the passengers continued to watch, a few even started recording the moment on their phones. The scene was escalating quickly, but the FBI agent remained poised, his face unreadable. It wasn't long before airport security arrived, but not with the ordinary response one might expect. They came with the agent's credentials, a solid confirmation of who he was. The passengers, still murmuring, now had confirmation that this was no ordinary situation. The agent wasn't just anyone. He was an FBI agent, one who had served in some of the most dangerous and high-profile cases. Yet here he was, facing rejection on a flight. The agent had worked in the field for years, dealing with high-risk operations, often undercover, often facing dangerous criminals. He had earned the trust and respect of his colleagues and superiors. But there was a darker side to his job, one that involved constant mental strain. It wasn't just the danger that came with his profession, it was the deep-seated racism he faced regularly, both in the field and beyond. No matter how many criminals he brought down, no matter how many cases he solved, there were always those who doubted his competence, those who saw him for his skin color first, not his qualifications. This moment on this plane was just another reminder of that harsh reality. The captain, on the other hand, had his own struggles. He was a man in his early 40s, seasoned by years in the cockpit. But the flight crew's disarray wasn't due to some technical malfunction. The truth was much darker. The captain had his own personal baggage, one tied to a controversial event in his past. Years ago, he had been involved in a case that raised serious questions about his views on race. It wasn't something he liked to remember, and it was certainly not something he wanted to confront of his passengers. But as the FBI agent stood before him, the memories came rushing back, forcing him to relive the mistake he had made. The captain had tried to bury his past, but the truth was never far behind. It wasn't just about following procedure. For him, it was personal. He couldn't bring himself to trust this man, to allow him on board the flight. The agent, standing in front of him, was a reminder of everything the captain had tried to forget. Despite the growing tension, the situation didn't explode immediately. But as time passed, it became clear that this wasn't going to end quietly. The agent, still calm and composed, insisted that he was not leaving the plane. He wasn't going to be dismissed this time. And as the captain continued to dig in his heels, airport security stepped forward again, their voices firm as they began calling for higher authority. A sudden twist came when a flight attendant, one who had been quietly observing the entire scene, stepped forward. She knew the FBI agent. She had worked with him on a previous assignment, and her recognition of him was immediate. She knew exactly who he was. The flight attendant, though nervous, insisted that the captain allow the agent to board the flight. It was the kind of connection that shifted the momentum of the confrontation. The security team called in for further assistance, escalating the situation to a point where the captain had no choice but to give in. He reluctantly allowed the FBI agent to take his seat. But the damage had been done. The flight crew, the passengers, and even the other security personnel now understood that there was more at play than just protocol. There were layers of personal history, prejudices, and unresolved conflict that had led to this moment. As the plane finally took off, the tension didn't immediately dissipate. The agent sat in his seat, staring out of the window, lost in thought. Despite the resolution of the situation, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what had just transpired. This wasn't just about being wrongfully rejected from a flight. It was about a deeper issue that ran through society, one that never seemed to fade, no matter how many steps forward were taken. He could already hear the congratulatory messages from his colleagues, but none of it made the situation better. None of it could erase the years of systemic inequality that he had fought against, only to be reminded of it at 30,000 feet. The captain, too, was left with his own reflections. As the plane ascended and the world below became smaller, he couldn't ignore the truth any longer. His past, the mistakes he had made, and the views he held had led him to this very point. He couldn't justify his actions, and he knew deep down that this wasn't just about the FBI agent. This was about confronting something he had never truly dealt with before. His prejudice, his biases, they had affected not just one man, but an entire flight. The plane continued on its journey, but the real flight, the one toward understanding, reconciliation, and self-awareness, was just beginning. Both the FBI agent and the captain had learned something invaluable that day. The agent had learned that he couldn't escape the harsh realities of racism, no matter his credentials or experience. And the captain, for the first time in a long while, had to confront the ugliness of his own past actions. As the flight moved forward, so too did the realization that the fight for equality, for understanding, for change, it was far from over. And it wasn't going to be won on any single flight, no matter how high they soared. If you're part of the Black Visionaries family, hit that like button right now, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss this one.